Hello students, welcome back. Yesterday we had our reading lesson, and through the reading lesson that we have here, and of course our unit, which is Do You Really Need It?, we had the topic on page number 74 and 75, which was about ads everywhere and do you buy it? Do you remember when we talked about the quotation marks and we said that buy here, it can be to purchase something or to believe something. So here we have the topic, and through the topic we have the ideas that you can see here. Now we talked about the amount of advertisements people see in a day, how advertisements reach people today, unconventional places for advertisements. We have placing ads in unusual places to get attention. People sell advertising space on themselves. Buzz marketing and advertisements follow everywhere without any limits. Now moving on, we had the questions in the book. Now I told you that these questions, we are going to discuss them and you have them as your assignment to just go back, read and answer. So we're going to take these 4 questions one by one. We have the first question, which is how many advertisements is the average person exposed to each day? Now this is a part that we did discuss and mention yesterday. Now the average person is exposed to between 400 and 600 advertisements each day. Number 2, we have here what are traditional advertising approaches. Now when you go back and read, you can see that there are many approaches. Now the ones that are mentioned in the text here are TV commercials, newspaper ads, and magazine ads are traditional advertising approaches. Traditional, don't forget. Number 3, we have here, what does the author of the article consider to be one of the strangest developments in advertising? Now we did mention something strange here. Now we said that selling advertising space on one's body is a strange development in advertising. Then we have the last question, number 4, what does the author consider to be the sneakiest form of advertising? Now we can see that there are sneaky ways to send the message to the people and they can advertise the product. Now you can see that we have here buzz marketing is considered the sneakiest form of advertising. And just to remind you that buzz marketing means to talk about a product around people and within normal conversation without letting the people know that you are really advertising. Now these were the parts that we had in the reading lesson yesterday. Now just to cover up, there's a short summary that we have here. Now I wrote the summary here. You can see that this is my handwriting. We have here, advertising is a type of communication that succeeds through teamwork and creativity. A lot of famous figures have made great accomplishments through advertising. The world of TV is full of advertisements we see every day. Now you can see that I connected between the ideas that we took before when we talked about teamwork in Unit 1 and famous figures in Unit 2. We also had something to deal with TV in Unit 4, which was about the world of TV. So here you can connect between the units and the ideas that we have in general. Now speaking of the handwriting part here, do you remember once I showed you also 2 messages and we discussed the difference that we have here between the written and also we have here the typed script that we have here. Now I asked you which one would you prefer and what are the advantages and disadvantages of each type. So we are going to move on since we are talking about handwriting here. We do have some questions. Do you enjoy writing by hand? Why or why not? So since we have the idea now about handwriting, now some people, they do enjoy writing by hand, they enjoy calligraphy in general, and they do like and consider it as an art. So here it is up to you. This is a personal point of view, and you can answer either why or why not. Another question is, do you think handwriting is a useful skill? Why or why not? So some people, they take it for enjoyment, and other people, they do consider it a useful skill. Also, either you answer yes or no, you have to show your reasons so you can have this kind of conversation, or you can just talk about the topic here between your classmates, and you can exchange your points of views. Now, we are going to start with our writing lesson. We are talking about handwriting here. So we have the lesson of writing, and we are actually going to talk about handwriting in our lesson. So our objectives of the day are to compare between handwriting and printing, state the characteristics of each type, scan for information and topic sentences, give a personal point of view about advertising at school, differentiate between types of essays, organize ideas to write a new essay. Now, when we say that we have here printing, we are actually dealing with the typing method. But when you have a presentation, or you want to send your work, for example, or just take it to your school, here you have the idea of printing the typed message or the typed homework that you have here, or you can just simply write it and present it or send it to whichever teacher that you want. So either you are at school, you are working within a team, or at work, you have the idea of which one do you prefer. Is it the typed method or the handwritten? Now, in your book, you can see in the writing lesson that we have here a lot of questions. So first of all, there are the questions that we did discuss before. We do have, after that, many questions. So we have the first one. What does handwriting involve? The second question, why are some people not keen on writing by hand? Why are some people not keen? What can specialists find out about someone through his or her handwriting? We have other questions. Why is word processing popular? Which types of tests are mentioned? What is the difference between them? What is the writer's viewpoint on the issue? Do you agree or disagree? So you can see that we have here 6 questions. Now, actually, these questions here, I did not discuss them because they are in the text. We are going to listen and also read at the same time. You are going to look for the answers for these questions. So to make it easy for you, you do have the questions in your book, and also we do have this box that has all 6 questions, and throughout the lesson, I am going to just move on, and each time we answer a question, I'll just remove it. So we do have our questions. Also, after we finish, or at the same time, you are going to look for the thesis statements and supporting statements. So we do have 7 parts. We have 7 paragraphs. We are going to look for the thesis, which is the summary or the main idea that we have here in the paragraph. And also we have here the supporting statements for the thesis. Also, we have here, what are some of the differences between this text and an expository essay? So this is an idea just to put in mind, and we will discuss it, inshallah, after we finish. Now, also, there's the last point before we start. An alternative way of analyzing the text would also make it possible to consider the first half of the last paragraph as the main thesis statement, with the rest of the paragraphs serving to support it. So in the whole text, there is going to be the main thesis statement, which can be either at the very beginning or at the last, or in the last paragraph, and it just covers up everything that is mentioned in the whole text. So we're going to move on here. We do have our title. Now, in your book, the title is Handwriting Obsolete? So we are going to discuss the word obsolete, but I do want you just to read, listen, and then we will analyze. So we're going to start here for the first passage. Now, as I just mentioned for you, I have the box. The box will appear. You are going to listen, and you are going to read the first question every time. So we are going to just concentrate on the first part, which is what does handwriting involve, and at the same time, look for the thesis. So let's start.
Handwriting involves forming letters with a writing implement. Proper handwriting, i.e. cursive writing, normally requires formal training that is still in place in some schools. Naturally, At initial literacy levels, young learners are trained to manipulate a writing implement and develop their eye-hand coordination so they can form letters.
So let's first of all just look for the thesis. Now at the very start you have the idea of the paragraph that we have here. We can say that handwriting involves forming letters with a writing implement. Now when we come to the question, what does handwriting involve? We can see directly after that we have here proper or letters with writing implement. We have also something about cursive writing normally requires formal training that is still in place in some schools. And we can also complete, we have here naturally at initial literacy levels, young learners are trained to manipulate a writing implement and develop their eye-hand coordination. So here we have, these are the parts that we have involved or concerning handwriting. Moving on to the second paragraph.
As learners get older, however, they are more reluctant to write. One of the reasons mentioned is the fact that most people word process, making handwriting unnecessary. Even older adults that used to have a distinct handwriting style often claim to have lost the ability to write smoothly and evenly. So is handwriting obsolete? Should we forget about it?
So you can see in the box that we have here the question, why are some people not keen on writing by hand, as we mentioned before? We can see first of all the thesis here. Now we have here, as learners get older, however, they are more reluctant to write. You can relate between the thesis and the question that we have here. So looking here at the short paragraph that we have here, we can say that's one of the reasons, because we have here why. Why are some people not keen on writing by hand? So one of the reasons mentioned is the fact that most people word process, making handwriting unnecessary. So a lot of people, they are now used to typing, they are used to using devices, any kind of devices, either they are laptops, computers, phones. We have here, there are different ways to type and to send any kind of work or any kind of text that they want. So at the very end, we do have the title here. Now you can see, so is handwriting obsolete? Should we forget about it? So there's something connected here by the word here, obsolete, and we have here forgetting, which means that something is being forgotten and or exchanged or something else is replacing. Now moving on to the third paragraph that we have here. So let's start.
Handwriting has been a very distinct identifying feature. It represents the writer in more ways than one. Graphologists analyze handwriting to determine character traits, gender, personality, and emotional state or to authenticate documents. Allowing it to truly become obsolete would remove an identity marker that has been regarded quite highly in historical and personal terms. Handwritten notes of prominent authors are coveted by collectors, who will often pay exorbitant amounts to possess them.
Now we can see that here we have the thesis, which is handwriting has been a very distinct identifying feature. It is an identifying feature. A lot of people, they are known for their handwriting. So we have the question, why can specialists find out about someone through his or her handwriting? So as I did mention that some people, they are known for their handwriting, we can see that the answer is that we have here that they analyze handwriting to determine character traits, gender, personality, and emotional state, or to authenticate documents. So we have here, there are lots of things, as we mentioned here, that can be considered to differentiate or to recognize a person, either it is a male or a female here. Moving on.
On the other hand, most of us will invariably use a computer when we write. It is fast and efficient, and it makes editing so much easier. You can delete, copy, paste, store versions of your work throughout stages of editing for later reference. You can spell check and search for words or alternative expressions. Compared to all these advantages, Handwriting seems so restricting and restricted that most computer-literate people limit it to scribbling notes for someone or filling in forms that are not available in electronic form.
So seeing the thesis here, we can see that on the other hand, most of us will invariably use a computer when we write. Now this is related to the question, why is word processing popular? Now here you can see in the paragraph that we have here a lot of advantages we have here word processing, or we can say typing. So here we have the answer. It is fast and efficient, and it makes editing so much easier. You can delete, copy, paste, store versions of your work throughout stages of editing for later reference. You can spell check and search for words or alternative expressions. So you can see that these are the advantages that we do enjoy every day while we are word processing. Moving on. Now we short paragraph here. So we have
tests, you might argue, require handwriting. Some do and some are computer-based. It is true, however, that a substantial number of pen and paper tests require writing by hand within a set time limit. Rusty handwriting is likely to affect the final score.
So starting with our main statement that we have here, now tests, you might argue, require handwriting. Some do and some are computer-based. Now we are studying online. There are things that we do have exams online here, or electronic exams. So you can see very clearly, either you are taking the test or giving the test, that there is a big difference between handwriting or electronic in doing these tests. So we have here the question, which types of tests are mentioned and what is the difference between them? Now, what did they mention here? You can see that there is mentioned, it is true, however, that a substantial number of pen and paper tests require writing by hand within a set time limit. So we do have something about tests that are done by pen and paper. Now, moving on to our last paragraph here, you can see that we have here,
overall, there seems to be some resistance to the total and unbroken hegemony of the computer, indicating that people do not want to become totally reliant on it. They are keen to hang on to some of the more tangible aspects of literate life that can be manipulated and accessed without the help of a device, such as reading books or writing by hand.
So here, let's see the thesis. Now we have here something about there seems to be some resistance to the total and unbroken hegemony of the computer, indicating that people do not want to become totally reliant on it. Now when we come to the part here, the thesis, you can find that there is no idea about the question that we have here. Now the last question that we have, what is the writer's viewpoint on the issue? Do you agree or disagree, and why? So we didn't find it in our last point here. We may find it in our conclusion, which is the closing paragraph. So we are going to move on to the closing paragraph. Also, you are going to look at the question that we have here, and we are going to start and listen. So let's see.
In view of the above, we would have to consider a more inclusive standpoint that allows us to exploit technological advances, while maintaining the ability to write with a simple implement on a surface for someone to read. Being able to record ideas, information, and messages in a self-sufficient and independent manner allows us to control the action itself and continue being masters of our expression.
Now you can see here that we have here clearly the thesis statement. In view of the above, which means that it covers everything above, we would have to consider a more inclusive standpoint. Now here there is a relation with the question that we have here. Now we can say in general, after understanding the whole text and what the writer of the text was pointing out, that the writer is in favor of technological advances that allow us to do things efficiently, but he is also keen to preserve the skill of writing by hand without the help of a device as a means of self-sufficiency and independence which is not reliant on machines. So we do have our complete text here. Now we have the question, what are some of the differences between this text and an expository essay? We have here an expository essay. There are objective statements, thesis and information that has been researched and evidenced, comments and examples made by others, quotes, exchanges, and arguments from different sources. However, we have here a persuasive essay, this text, a thesis statement, and a title that will attract readers and exploit controversy, avoid controversy, consider different views, use of questions, objections to your arguments or viewpoints, and ways to overcome them. Focus on getting your reader to agree with you. So you can see that there is a difference between the two types that we have here, the expository essay and the persuasive essay. Now, in general, we do know that handwriting involves forming letters with a writing implement. Proper handwriting, for example, we have here cursive writing, normally requires formal training that is still in place in some schools. Naturally, at initial literacy levels, young learners are trained to manipulate a writing implement and develop their eye-hand coordination so they can form letters. So you do know that we have here a kind of combination between writing, and we have here also the other type, which is typing. So is handwriting really obsolete? Yes or no? Now, this is the text that we have here. You can see that we are relating, as we did before when I wrote and related between our units, that we are linking our ideas all together. Now, this is something that you can do in your turn, which is going to be on page number 77. Now, I'm just to give you a basic idea, and we will complete, inshallah, in our next lesson. We do have here the first point. Now, number one, decide whether or not you support advertising in schools. So this is what we have here. We are going to link between our ideas. We did mention something about advertisements at schools in the reading lesson. So we are going to take this part. We are going to just study the idea, and you are going to give your opinion. Do you support or not? Number two, to think about reasons why advertising in schools is a good or bad idea. Use an organizer to write down your ideas. So we need an organizer. You can, and this is what you are going to do. You are going to write a letter to your local newspaper about this topic, trying to convince the reader that your view is correct. Now let's start just one by one. The first point that you are going to do for the day, you are going to organize your ideas. You have the idea about advertising at school. So we have your advertising in schools is or is not a good idea. Now just write a graph, support your ideas. Just try to choose the basic idea that you have in mind and what are the words suitable for your ideas. Now this is going to be the first step we are going to complete in our next lesson, inshallah, which is going to be the second lesson of the writing. So focus on the first part that we have here, and we are going to complete in our next lesson. Now, covering up, we can see here that we have discussed writing in general. We read and searched for specific information and thesis statements. Enumerated types that we have here. We have the handwritten and also the typed or the processed. Highlighted characteristics for each kind and organized writing steps. So the first step that we are going to organize is to write the graph that we have here supporting the idea of advertising at schools. So this is going to be our assignment for the day. We are going to start. I'm going to do my assignment and we'll complete, inshallah, tomorrow.